Liberation of self. Today is the day I change. I was waiting for it for a long time. Days, months, years have passed. Many times I was ready for it, many times I prepared myself, but never happened until today. Something was wrong today. My body got heated. My arms and legs were tingling and numb. My soul was leaving me slowly, and I was watching myself from the top. It was a strange feeling. I have never felt it before. This was liberation. Finally, my soul was getting free and breaking the boundaries of our limited biological cover. Can you imagine a world independent from all limitations? No time, no perspective limitations, and no place. At the beginning, I envied the birds and how they see the world over. They had the all air. No rules, no highways. It was complete freedom, but then I thought about the atmosphere. It was the limitation. Is the sky limit? Definitely not, I thought. Time to time I was checking my biological body. How miserable it is. It was trying to understand what is going on, but also calling me back. These moments were the toughest moments because I don't want to go back in that cover, but it was strong. For some moment, I found myself in that body again. Reality was in complete illusion. Even for me. It made me think that perception is just an illusion. It is so easy to manipulate, and our bodies are our biggest weaknesses. While I was thinking of all these, I heard a voice. Wake up. My body opened the eyes and saw her who took us to reality. Suddenly, everything became normal as before, but I didn't believe it. What if it was illusion and all other are real? This question finally confused the body, and he got lost again. This time I could escape even further and got my freedom again. I was seeing the reality in infinite universe. After flying around for a while, I felt a strong vacuum and found myself in a darkness. It was very dark, but from voices I assumed that it is a box. I was in the middle of it and hanging freely. No weight, no touch, no gravity, nothing. It is just nothingness around me and no senses except one. I could hear. When I paid attention to the voices, I noticed that it is not me who was talking, but it was my voice. My voice was echoing all around. Presumably, this box was around 27 cubic meters. I gave more attention to voices and tried to understand what it is. I can understand nothing. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Suddenly, I could said, "Where am I?" aloud, but it didn't echo. Instead it went away to infinity. At the same moment, other voices of me kept echoing. After some time, I understood few words. Who are you? I wanted to answer this question, but I couldn't. I was mute again. I was hearing that moment the same question, who are you? 1,000 times. Maybe millions. No time, no space, nothingness. Complete nothingness. Therefore, I don't know the count, but I was feeling it in all cells, and then I started to ask, who am I? Who should I suppose to be? I even couldn't answer myself. In the nothingness, a strange feeling filled me. It was complete freedom. Nothing was like on earth or space. No order, no chaos, no physics. Everything was beyond all I knew. I was feeling only freedom, but it was bothering me to not be able to identify myself. What makes me feel like me? This question changed everything. Nothingness had changed, darkness had gone, and I was there where I was born. It was like awaking from a dream. Just few minutes ago I was in darkness, and now everything looks familiar. The streets, smell, voices. Everything was very familiar. Wait a minute. What am I doing here? I left here years ago, I thought, but this thought led me nowhere. I was still there. I waited for an hour, but no change. I was still there. This must be the reality. All my experiences should have been a dream or imagination from books, movies, but what am I doing here and what should I do now? Because I remember nothing but only the way to home. Perhaps I have some sickness and lose my memory and get lost. So, all I can do is to go back to home. I thought and started to walk back to home. Interestingly, streets were empty. There were extreme silence. I kept walking down to Main Street and finally I was close to home. I would just turn the last street and then come to ours. I did so. I turned the street and suddenly I saw a big crowded. They were looking at me. I just looked carefully to make an eye contact and noticed something. I know all of them. All those faces were familiar, all those faces I saw before. Is it possible that I made up story from these faces and adapted it as my life? Because, he was there. Professor Roeder. On the other side of the way. Mr. Carpenter, but it is impossible to see all of these people here because I met them in different places. Am I crazy? I thought. I was shocked, numb. I was feeling the freedom and suddenly I was trapped. I decided to go back to way I came and I run back. However, how far I was running was leading me back to Street L.
A sea change, the laboratory was crammed. But Joshua knew exactly where everything was. He could immediately locate the piece of equipment he needed or the notebook he was looking for. It wasn't that he hated organization, but somehow it was easier to find things this way. No wonder he knew every nook and cranny of the place, he spent most of his time there. Very often he ate and slept there, had a shave and a shower there, or changed clothes there, despite the overall sloppiness. It was a pleasant place. A spacious room with a big, bay window overlooking the sea. Joshua fell head over heels in love with the view from the window when he had come to rent the place. This will be my inspiration, he had thought to himself. And he wasn't wrong. Every time he was disappointed or disheartened with the results of his experiments, he turned towards the window. The restless sea somehow transmitted to him the strength he needed to continue. The never-ending sound of the waves tickling the sand also stimulated his imagination. And he started all over again. Changing one detail here, substituting something for something else there, adding something new, or omitting something unnecessary. But the result was always the same, failure. Joshua was very secretive about his work and never talked about it with his family or friends. At least not before he succeeded. He found it tactless to talk about theories and experiments they had no idea about and that would bore them to death or, even worse, entertain them. So practically no one knew what he was working on. Except for himself and the walls of that off-the-beaten-track laboratory. That day, the sun was setting and Joshua couldn't help but look out of the window. His head ached and he desperately needed a break. So he took his jacket and scarf, opened the front door, went out and started walking towards the sea. He found a spot and sat down on the warm sand, looking at the sunset. It must have been the most beautiful sunset he had ever seen. Tired as he was, he felt his eyes heavy and ready to close. Within minutes, he was lying on the warm sand, sleeping heavily. Joshua half opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was some stars appearing shyly in the sky. The sun had set, but it wasn't dark yet. The twilight was still glowing. Silly me, thought Joshua when he realized he had fallen asleep on the beach. But as he was about to stand up, he heard a soft female voice next to him saying, "It isn't a crime to rest from time to time." Joshua, startled, he realized there was a woman sitting near him. He sat up, turned and peered in the dark which was now thicker. With difficulty he distinguished a female figure, probably naked, with a slim body and long wavy hair which covered it. What on earth, he thought to himself and his eyes opened wide. The woman was looking at him calmly and was probably smiling at him. How did she know his name? Where had she come from? Had she been watching him? Joshua kept looking at her, absolutely speechless. He quickly calculated his options in his mind. He could either stand up and run back to his lab, or sit and find out who the strange woman was and what she wanted from him. The woman spoke again with her soft voice, "Don't worry, Joshua, I will by no means hurt you." Her soothing voice somehow calmed him down. He didn't want to run away anymore, on the contrary, He wanted to stay with her and find out whatever he could about her. She seemed to know him rather well and understand his thoughts. How was that possible? So many questions roamed in his mind. In the meantime, darkness had fallen. All Joshua could see was the stars in the sky and the figure of the strange woman. Her eyes shone and Joshua assumed they were blue. "Who are you?" uttered Joshua with difficulty. "This is unimportant," she replied. "What is important is that I am here. And I am here to help you. Are you a scientist, too?" asked Joshua with doubt in his voice. "I am someone who knows your problem and has the solution," replied the strange woman firmly. Joshua almost let a laugh out. That was impossible. Nobody had a clue about his work, let alone the solution to it. He thought that someone played a prank on him. Yes, that was it, a prank and nothing else. But the woman kept sitting there, cool, calm and collected. "Then tell me, what is the solution to my problem?" asked Joshua, stifling a smile. "You are very down-to-earth and lack imagination, Joshua. Without imagination, you will not be able to grasp any solution to any problem, let alone your own." "This is a very broad and equivocal answer," replied Joshua, trying to challenge the woman. "I need more details. How can my problem be solved?" Then the strange woman started to talk about his failed experiments, his equations that resulted in nothing, the materials he used, his obsolete equipment, his disappointment and frustration.